MLB insider Ken Rosenthal called the Dodgers and the Mets the two frontrunners to land Shohei Ohtani. Is this dream really going to become a reality? We'll discuss it on today's edition, Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, Ken Rosenthal is maybe the most plugged in MLB insider there is. When Ken Rosenthal writes a report, we all sort of look at it as gold. This guy is not just going to be making stuff up. He is a thorough reporter who is doing really good work for The Athletic. And he's now making appearances on the Foul Territory podcast, where we're getting some inklings of some of the inner workings around the game. And they were asking about Shohei Ohtani. And this is what he said about how he views the landscape of the suitors for Ohtani. He said, quote, "The Dodgers have been the favorite for a long time, or at least a team we thought would definitely be in the mix. I cannot rule out the Mets. I cannot see Steve Cohen simply passing on Shohei Ohtani." Rosenthal also noted some dark horse teams in the Giants, the Rangers, and the Mariners as possibilities for Ohtani. He said he does not believe the Yankees will be in the mix, which is interesting because you would think that the Yankees would, if they were the George Steinbrenner Yankees of the past, kick the tires on a top free agent like Ohtani, try to get a deal done. But when you consider the fact that Ohtani's a DH and they're going to be paying Stanton with pretty much no way out until whatever it is, 2027, 2028, I can't remember how long that contract goes, but he's getting upwards of $30 million for a lot of these seasons. They're sort of stuck, and they really have no place for Ohtani and Stanton. And they're also committing a lot of money to Carlos Rodon now after this offseason, and before Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge, and they're going to have a decision on Cole coming up here as he has an opt-out. So the Yankees being out of this mix basically means you have West Coast teams and you have the New York Mets. The only team on the East Coast mentioned was the Mets. There was no mention of the Boston Red Sox, which makes sense considering they haven't been the team spending at an exorbitant rate over the last couple of years. So now you look at the other suitors. Giants, Rangers, Mariners, all teams that, are, in the mix right now for the most part. Giants not necessarily, but, playoff teams with interesting cores that Ohtani could play with. But are they going to be the teams that really go so heavy on the bidding that they can get into the mix? The Giants maybe, because they have a clear deck and they've shown a willingness to spend this past off season, even though the Correa deal fell through. Still, though, what Rosenthal's reporting is that he believes it will eventually come down to the Dodgers and the Mets. And I'm not trying to just, put a ton of Shohei Ohtani content out there. But when an insider like Ken Rosenthal makes it seem like a possibility, the more we have to stop calling it, a impossible thing, something we don't think it's going to happen. We have to seriously consider it. Because what this essentially means, if Steve Cohen's not going to pass on Ohtani and he's going to be involved and the Mets are going to go for it in some capacity, they're not going for it to come in second. So that means submitting a really good offer. That means meeting with Shohei Ohtani. And Billy Epler is the guy that got him to sign in the first place, who has a lot of experience in getting deals done with Japanese players. Ohtani, Kodai Senga. The Mets might be in the mix for Yoshinobu Yamamoto this offseason as well. David Stern, this is going to be his first chance to land a massive free agent that he could never have dreamed of signing when he was running the Brewers. So if this becomes a thing and the Mets are trying for it, and they're going to end up with the highest offer on the table, and it's just a matter of convincing Ohtani to play for them instead of the Dodgers, where it's been reported that he would prefer the West Coast and that he wants to prioritize winning more than anything else. It's on a silver platter for the Dodgers to get Shohei Ohtani, and the Mets could just be the team that drives out the bidding. Really. I mean, the Dodgers, they're a team that they sign the guys who can't miss. Think about who they have on their books right now, the superstar players. There's really only two. They have Mookie Betts, a guy that's every year in the MVP conversation. He is as stable of a superstar as you could build your franchise around. They had an opportunity to trade for him. They got the deal done, and they gave him the blank check. And then Freddie Freeman. They were opportunistic with a guy that probably wasn't getting enough value on the market considering his talent level. But they went and they gave him a big offer, knowing that that is a bat that you can bet on being great. Shohei Ohtani is the type of talent that, even if he doesn't pitch again, offensively, he is going to be special. And there's the chance that in 2025, he's doing the two-way thing again and giving you this surplus value on a roster spot that you'll never find again. So yeah, the Dodgers make the most sense. With that said, the Mets are in the mix. That's something to be excited about because as I did a whole show a couple weeks ago, this could be their moment where, like the Yankees got Babe Ruth, the Mets can get Ohtani and he could bring in an era of winning. He can be that piece that changed the perception of the New York Mets from lovable losers, or seasons like this year feels like losers that we just like to laugh at. By we, I mean everybody outside of Mets fans. And even Mets fans, at a certain point, it's better to laugh than cry. Ohtani comes in, the Mets win championships with him. Everything can change under Steve Cohen's ownership. And I think that's why he might kick the tires this year. It seems like he's going to. The question just is, can they get it done? But further, I am still hesitant in my head thinking about what he's going to get paid to wonder if it really is the free agent that you give over $500 million to. And if they do sign Ohtani, who could they miss out on over the next couple of years? And that's what I want to explore next. We're going to look at this free agent class and the next two and see if there is another star player that would give you a pause before signing Ohtani to this contract. Before we get to that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Nutrafol. Nutriful is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz to identify the causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting the root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health, and it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol by going to Nutrafol.com/men. That's spelled Nutrafol.com/men. And enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. The New York Mets play the Miami Marlins in a doubleheader today starting at 4:10 Eastern Time. Catch every pitch from the Mets hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Now, how much money is Shohei Ohtani going to make? You have to figure that it's going to cost as much as any other superstar is going to get on the market who's just a position player, and then you got to tack on like $100 million because he pitches. So it's going to cost a lot. And I actually will be putting my first guess of what a contract will look like in our new subtext. So for those of you who have yet to subscribe, you can go, it's in the episode description. Subtext is a way that you can text me and also get my text updates. It's a place where I'm going to put some extra content for the show. And today, 2 o'clock Eastern time, I am going to send out a subtext with the contract that I think Ohtani might sign this offseason. But let's look at the market. Let's look at the other free agents out there. So this upcoming season, it's Ohtani. And then what? It falls off an absolute cliff. When you look at position players, it's really Ohtani and Cody Bellinger. That's it. That's the list. Matt Chapman, fringe in there. Other than that, you're looking at guys like Rhys Hoskins, Jock Peterson. Apparently, Michael Conforto is going to opt out, test free agency. Teoscar Hernandez. And there's nothing. There's nothing of superstar caliber that you can sign outside of Ohtani or Bellinger. And again, I think Bellinger's still a tier below that. Now, on the pitching front, there's Blake Snell, who has been remarkable this year, is going to win his second Cy Young. There's Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who I think the Mets should absolutely be in on. And I think even if they sign Ohtani, they should be in on Yamamoto. And then there's Aaron Nola, who doesn't have the best ERA this year, but he just put up his like 5th 200 strikeout season. The guy's been as consistent of a starting pitcher as you're going to find in Major League Baseball. You know, you could sign one of those starters and wait a year and then get in the mix on Juan Soto. Is that the direction the Mets should go, or should they just go right for Ohtani? Let's look at some of the other names. 2025 free agent class, Juan Soto. That's the first 9-figure player who's going to get, who knows? He might get $450, $500 million himself because he's so young and so unique as a talent. Pete Alonso, your own guy. If you sign Ohtani, are you still going to sign Alonso when there's no place to DH him for 4 or 5 years? Or do you look at Ohtani and say, all right, we have Shohei Ohtani. You have Ohtani and Alonso in the lineup together for 1 season. You get an opportunity to see some more of Mark Vientos. You see where Ryan Clifford's going in the minor leagues. You see if Ronnie Mauricio or Brett Baty, like, are you testing the waters for all these other guys to potentially say goodbye to Pete Alonso because you're then paying Shohei Ohtani, upwards of $50 million a season, whatever it ends up being? Something you have to think about. I don't think that just pushes you off Ohtani because you got to keep Alonso. It's Steve Cohen's team. He could keep them both, but it's just part of what that contract could mean. Alex Bregman, it's a free agent. Nice player. Fringe Hall of Fame track. I did an article for Just Baseball where we're looking at guys who are on a Hall of Fame track, and just based on what he's done so far, it's kind of sneaky in there. He's going to need some longevity. He's going to need the Astros to win a lot. I don't think that's anything that's going to halt you on Ohtani. And then there's Jose Altuve, who'll be a free agent going to his age 35 season. So that's that class. Now, there's also Christian Walker and Paul Goldschmidt, which I just wanted to note because if you lose Alonso, Christian Walker entering his age 34 season, Paul Goldschmidt entering age 37, guys that can maybe had on shorter term deals that you'd be more comfortable with if you had to say goodbye to Alonso. The pitching class is insane in 2025. Garrett Cole could opt out. Zach Wheeler will be a free agent. Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff, 2 guys who now David Stearns, guy that brought them up in that organization, again, more food for thought. Shane Bieber, although I don't know if that's a guy you're going to give that type of money to. Walker Buehler, Max Fried, Tyler Glasnow. That's a loaded pitching class. That's where, if you don't add Yamamoto or theoretically Snell, I think that's where you get your ace in that market. And again, the thing is with Ohtani is you potentially have another guy that could be an ace if he gets back on the mound healthy. Look beyond that to 2026. Kyle Tucker, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, and Will Smith. Now, Will Smith's a catcher. If Alvarez pans out the way you hope he will, you won't really need to be in the market for Will Smith. And also, Will Smith is so good, you wonder why the Dodgers wouldn't try to bring him in or keep him, Kyle Tucker is an awesome outfielder. I love to see the Mets sign him. That doesn't, to me, point to build your franchise around him superstar. Vlad Guerrero Jr., if you're going to sign him, you should have just signed Alonso. Bo Bichette, he's a shortstop. And you have not only Francisco Lindor locked in, but you have now a handful of shortstop prospects. Mauricio's up. Still have to find a position for him. You have Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna in Double-A. We'll get to them in the final segment as far as what happened in that game. Wasn't good. And then you have Colin Houck and Marco Vargas in the lower levels. So you have a lot of coverage there. Bo Bichette does not really stop me. Then you look at the starting pitchers in that class. Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, Dylan Cease, Mitch Keller. The Mets are going to have other opportunities to add starting pitching over the next 2 years. I mean, you can just rattle off Cy Young candidates. Cole, Wheeler, Burns, Woodruff, Fried, Bueller, Valdez, Gallen, Cease. Throw in Mitch Keller if you wanted to, or Tyler Glass now because his stuff is nasty, and you get to a round number of 10. The point is, there's going to be other opportunities to add pitchers. When it comes to the stud position player, the stud hitter that you build your lineup around, there's not a lot coming because so many guys are getting pre-arb extensions. So many guys are staying with their teams. A guy like Julio Rodriguez pops up, and the Mariners just give him the lifetime contract. Corbin Carroll pops up. Boom. Long-term deal. Yes, there's going to be free agents at some point. But if you're looking at a window to win in 2025 and 2026, really it comes down to two players. When you're looking at guys that can change your lineup from free agency. It's Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani. Now, Juan Soto as a guy that can play some left field. With the roster that the Mets have, if you're just simply looking at who builds out the best lineup, and I had to pick one hitter, Ohtani or Soto, because Shohei Ohtani is a DH and because Soto is playing outfield, I would say that Juan Soto and keeping Pete Alonso is the direction that I would prefer the Mets to spend their money, because you're getting two hitters in that mix. But with that said, if Shohei Ohtani comes back and pitches, well, there's that wrinkle. And what Shohei Ohtani means as a player, as a figure, as an icon, that might be worth it to the Mets more than Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. And the interesting thing is, if you sort of really think about the money that would go out to Ohtani, if you start to have conversations of you can have Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Walker Buehler for what Ohtani is going to make, then I think the conversation has gone too far. If Ohtani is going to end up making $65 million a season, I would hope the Mets don't do it, because I feel like that's too much money invested in one player. I think if you get to the point where you're paying Ohtani like two superstars, then it gets too crazy. But if this thing ends up more in the $50 million range, and it's the most expensive position player, and then the pitcher salary part of it isn't as crazy because now there's some doubt about Ohtani with this injury, then I think it gets more interesting. The other element of it too, and this is probably future podcast to discuss it, is the structure of that contract. Like, is there going to be an opt-out now because of this injury where Ohtani can hit free agency again? If he can reestablish himself as the two-way player in 3 years, is he going to opt out and try to get more? That's the other aspect to it. But it is still really exciting to think about Shohei Ohtani in a Mets uniform, because it would give this franchise a level of relevance. They're always going to be relevant, but a level of national relevance that no other free agent possibly could. So when you hear Ken Rosenthal talk about it, it's hard not to at least get a little bit excited and dream on it. So it was worth talking about, I think. Anyway, Binghamton played the only baseball tonight because the Mets were rained out, and they didn't play too well. We'll get to that in a minute. Before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jace Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of their board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe inappropriate. Then they send your prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies where your Jace order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. Not only this, you can send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions anytime. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase, medical.com. The New York Mets play the Miami Marlins at 4:10 Eastern Time as part of a doubleheader today. Catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Well, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies got smoked in their game against the Erie Seawolves, who won the AA title. You look at what happened here, Binghamton just didn't hit, okay? Brant Herder, a 25-year-old lefty in the Tigers farm system for the Seawolves, just carved them up. And there's no shame in it. He had a good season in AA. He pitched to a 3.28 ERA over 118 innings, had 133 strikeouts. He's a good pitcher that, really dominated this one. And Binghamton just never got much going, and they were in a hole early, and they just struggled. Christian Scott with that 40 to 50 pitch limit at this stage. They went to start him. He's been sort of the star of the farm system this year when it comes to pitching. He won the pitcher of the year. He has been the biggest riser. He's going to be a consensus top 10 prospect in this system now. His strikeout to walk ratio is amazing for the season. He has just been awesome, and I've been hyping him up on this show a lot. He didn't have a great start, though. He ended up getting knocked out in the second inning, gave up 3 hits, a walk, a big home run, 3 earned runs. Couldn't get out of that inning before hitting that pitch limit. Then they went to the bullpen, and ultimately just that Seawolves team continued to rack up hits. They had 9 hits. They drew 4 walks. They put up 10 runs. They had 4 crooked numbers. So 4 rallies where they scored more than a run. 3 runs in the second off Scott, 3 runs in the 5th, 2 runs in the 7th, 2 runs in the 8th. Not to nitpick the managing of AA baseball, but because of the innings limit and because of how well Dominic Hamill pitched last week, if he was as available as I think he probably should have been, I would have liked to see the Mets just gone to Dominic Hamill, a guy that could have got them longer into that game and seen what would have happened. But, hey, if the Rumble Putters would have won one of the first 2 games, it would have been Hamill's chance to win a winner-take-all game. So it is what it is. It's frustrating to see their season end like this, but still, great job from the Rumble Ponies in the second half to make the playoffs, to win a playoff series against a team in the Somerset Patriots, who were, of course, the Yankees affiliate, but they won each half. They had the best record in the first half and the second half in the Rumble Ponies division. They upset them in that series. And there's a lot to be excited about. You look up and down this lineup, and you particularly look at the first 6 hitters in this lineup. It's as good as any team is going to have in their AA affiliate. Luis Angel Acuna, in this game, he went 0 for 3 with a walk, but he's obviously a prospect that you're looking at next year. And you're thinking he could have an impact. Jet Williams was just quoted saying he wants to be in the big leagues next year. That's his goal. He's going to spend all of next season, not all of next season. He's going to start next season in AA, and he'll have to earn that promotion to Triple and potentially up to the big leagues. But he's a guy, if you've seen the way that prospects are being fast-tracked to the majors, he's certainly looking like someone that could be up sooner than you'd think. Drew Gilbert, awesome run since coming over in that trade for Justin Verlander. He really looks like a guy that's going to start for the New York Mets in the outfield for at least 5-6 seasons, right? When he makes his way up. So good to see him have that run. And I think you look at Acuna, Williams, and Gilbert, and you imagine you're going to get 2 starters out of the 3. Prospects are always volatile, but I really believe that to be the case. You might get 3 starters on this team when you get to 2025. So that is something that you really have to be excited about. Kevin Parada showed out in this playoff series. He got 4 hits. So he really performed well. He's a guy that could be a backup catcher to Francisco Alvarez. He also is a guy that I look at and I say that is the trade chip that at next deadline, if he can have a great season in Binghamton next season, he's the guy that gets you the player you need to make a run to the World Series if the Mets are competitive next season. JT Schwartz, just some interesting depth in their farm, had a really nice season in Double-A. Hasn't shown a lot of power, but has shown a good feel to hit. You're going to need more power from a first baseman, but he's an interesting guy in this farm system, probably in the top 30, closer to the back end of it, but still. And Jeremiah Jackson was a revelation of a prospect to acquire at the deadline for a pitcher like Dominic Leone, who just you picked up off the scrap heap. All of a sudden, you get a guy that's a former second-round pick that might not be a starter in the big leagues, but is looking like a guy that has some power in his bat and could be a really nice utility player for you, who's already getting that by playing third base, shortstop, second, left, right. He's just a nice piece to be part of your 40-man roster soon. That's going to be able to do a lot for you in years where you're trying to contend on a minimum salary. So I love this team that they had in Binghamton. I love what they were able to put together. The pitching staff is great as well with Christian Scott, Dominic Hamill, Tyler Stewart, Joander Suarez. A lot of guys that are going to be featured in that top 30 and guys that represent real pitching depth in the upper levels in the minor leagues that the Mets just haven't had in years. So it was good to see their success. And as we continue, and here's the last week of the season, getting into off-season content, I'm really going to be focusing on the farm system and doing deep dives into a lot of these guys as you look towards, a top 30 that I'll put together, and you just sort of forecast out how this farm system is going to continue to improve under David Stern's leadership now, and how it could impact winning for the Mets in the future. Mets Marlins. This is an opportunity for the Mets to play spoiler. This might be the last day of baseball you even need to watch, to be completely honest with you, for the season, because it's a doubleheader. You're going to see Kodai Senga's last start of the year. He's sitting at 194 strikeouts. Be great to see him get to 200. Right now, they haven't announced how they're going to line it up. Braxton Garrett's going to pitch for the Marlins, and they probably have to go to bullpen for the Mets. It's going to be Joe Lucchesi and Kodai Senga, I believe. And hey, if they sweep a doubleheader against the Marlins, it might just cripple their playoff run. David Peterson will start the game on Thursday with Jesus Luzardo going for the Marlins. And after this, the Phillies just clinched tonight, so they're in the playoffs. I believe they clinched the 4 seed, the number 1 wild card spot. The Marlins are sitting a half game back because the Cubs blew one to the Braves tonight. The Diamondbacks beat the White Sox, so they're a game and a half up in that second wild card spot, a game and a half above the Marlins. They're going to close the season against an Astros team that's going to desperately need all of those games. So the Marlins, who play the Pirates next, if they win this series against the Mets, they're sitting pretty. They lose this series against the Mets, they're going to have an uphill battle, even with the fact that the Cubs are going to play the Brewers, a team that, has everything locked up at this point, but still might want to knock them out of the playoffs. And again, the Diamondbacks are going to have a tough weekend series as well. So we'll see if the Mets play a little bit of spoiler. And I'll be breaking down that doubleheader, last meaningful baseball maybe of the season, on tomorrow's show. Probably doing a wrap on Kodai Senga's season. So make sure for all you everydayers, you check that out. Again, join our subtext if you want to get in on that additional Locked On Mets content and see what I believe Shohei Ohtani's contract is going to be. So you can check that out again in the description. Make sure you follow me, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. If you want to catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast today, you can do so with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets.